All right, so we're back here and we've got this looking pretty nice with the buttons on the bottom. The next thing we want to do is align all this together so it looks like one big block of text rather than being all mishmashed here. So one of the things that we can do is we can take this element and this element here and put them into something called a thumbnail. So let's look at the components for Bootstrap. And if we scroll on down, okay, and thumbnails, there we go. So if we look at thumbnails, it's hard to get this thing all on one screen with a. All right, so here's the thumbnail that we could use. Oops. Okay, so it extends the grid system, putting everything into a nice little block. So let's go ahead and get that class. Okay, and this is the class right here. Ah, jeez, we hate Windows. All right, do what I want, not what I. Here we go. All right, so this is the class that we want. So we're going to go ahead and copy the thumbnail class because we're going to include that with another class that we have. So let's go ahead and copy that. All right, let's go back to our Bootstrap. And what we want to do is we want to take and put it around this div that holds our quality meats and the other one that does our bread. So we'll go into this div here and we'll add that class. All right, so it already has this class that set up the columns, and then we have this class that moved the margin over. So let's go ahead and add that last class. Control V, and see how that's changed what we have. Let's do File and Save. Okay, and let's go back and refresh. Okay, there's our page, and let's refresh. Nice. So you can see how this, now we want to do the same thing with this side. Go ahead and package it all up. So let's go back to our styles and find where our second grouping is. Okay, here is our next one. And we'll go ahead and paste in thumbnail again. File and save. And then let's go ahead and refresh. Nice. Okay, so now what we want to do is let's go ahead and fix this up here, and we can use a component for that also. Okay, we can get over here. Let's take a look. All right, so this is, let's do something with a CSS, I guess. Let's go back up to CSS. We want to take that heading and make it look nicer. So this sandwich thing right here, we want to make that look a little bit better. So let's see if we have some tools in order to be able to do that. And let's go ahead and look into the classes. All right, so one of the things we might want to do is there's something called contextual backgrounds. Let's see what that's. That's what we want to do. So we want to go ahead and put a background on there. This color right here is what we've been using, the primary, but I'd like to use a lighter color. So let's go ahead and use the let's use info instead. So this is the class of info. So let's go ahead and copy that. Whoop, yeah. So this is the class of info. So we're going to go ahead and copy that. And let's go back into our styles. So we want to take this one and do with the sandwiches. So let's go ahead and find where that is. Okay, so more than just sandwiches. This is what we want to use that contextual background for. So let's go ahead and go into our H1 tag, H2 tag, I mean, and go ahead and paste it in. All right, and let's go ahead and see how that looks. Okay, and save it and then refresh. Nice. So the only thing we want to do now is center this text. So let's go into CSS, the Bootstrap again, and go to typography, and let's see, alignment classes. So we want to use a class that they've already done for us. All right, so we have all these different ones that we could use, and what we want to use is we want to use the text center. Since we already have the class equals in there, we're just going to grab the text center, copy that, and paste that into our style. All right, so we already have the class of BG info. Now what we want to do is hit the space bar and paste in the other class that we also want to apply, which is the text center. Right, and then they will do file and save and go back and refresh. There we go. All right, I declare this section done. So now we need to go back. Now we need to go and create our next section. So what we have is we have this section over here, and on this section over here, what we'd like to do is go ahead and create some pictures of the types of sandwiches we have so that people can go ahead and see what they look like. So that's going to be our picture gallery section. So let's go back, let's go into our and see where we're going to go ahead and put that. All right, so this is the end of the meat section, and this is the end of that that 6 column that we did right here inside. So this is the row that we're currently in. We want to stay within that, and then we want to add another column, medium 6. So let's go ahead and do that. And a caption and a meets end of that. So you can see that this is where we end this part of that row. And then if we go down, we can see that's the end of the row. Actually, that's not the first row. That's the second row, right? Second row. First row is up by the Jumbotron. All right, so let's go ahead and do the same thing that we did up here. So within that, I'm going to say div dot class okay. Okay, and then hit tab. All right, that's not what I wanted to do. So let's try that again. It's div dot, and then we go ahead and put in this up here. So it'll be column for a medium screen, and we want 6. Okay, so the 12 is going to be 2 columns each. Then I press tab, and now we'll go ahead and add them in. So just like we did up here, everything that we're going to do is going to be within these div tags. So let's go ahead and move this down. And we'll say end of gallery. Okay, end of gallery. Yeah, I spell it right. And then we'll go ahead and select this and hit Control/. All right, so that's then everything else is going to go in here. So the next thing we want to do is let's create a container within that for our pictures. So we're going to call this a let's call this div dot, and we'll just call it gallery, I guess. Okay, and then press tab. Okay, and then everything will be contained inside that. And then we can go ahead and style that. All right, then inside this, let's add a heading, and we'll make it, let's make it H2. H2 tab, and then we'll give a heading of gallery. All right, so let's go ahead and save what we have, because we're hitting the 11 minutes now, and then refresh, and nothing has happened. Well, we got gallery up on there. So this is where our next section is going to be, right after underneath this.